Hey y'all, it's just Jennifer. Thank you for joining me again on this Tuesday. I took a break last week because of the holidays, so I have 2 weeks worth of reading to talk about, and I'm really excited. But first, you're probably wondering, based on the fact that I'm wearing a Christmassy shirt, if I'm going to be talking about Christmas books today. I am not yet, but I want to do that in the future. I just, at 7, have a virtual Christmas party with my writers group, which is one of the reasons I bumped this up to 6:30. And I actually kind of like this time. I might keep this time. But anyways, and I wasn't sure how long I would prattle on about books, so I wanted just to go ahead and be festive. But while I have mentioned Christmas books, I do want to go ahead and bring one up that I've talked about before on here. It's called Magnolia, Mistletoe by Lindsey Brackett. And I actually know Lindsey Brackett. She's one of my writer friends. She is a local author. She is local to my area. She lives in White County, which is the next county over from me. And this novella is in between her debut novel, Still Waters, and her sophomore novel, A Bridge Between. And this focuses on Hannah Calhoun and Benjamin Townsend. And if you've read Still Waters, then you have been introduced to both of these characters. Hannah is Cora Ann's cousin, and Benjamin is Tennessee's best friend. So if you like Still Waters, you'll like this book. It's set on Edisto Island as well, in South Carolina. And it reads kind of like a Hallmark movie. So if you love Hallmark movies, which I love Hallmark movies, but if you love Hallmark movies, then you will definitely like this book. It has a very similar feel. It is kind of light, which is, we need light this year. We need light. Touches a little bit on some sadder topics, but Lindsey is very good about touching on those hard topics with an interesting flair. That's really the only way I know how to describe it, because when she does it, you're not sitting there just like mired in emotions. Like, you feel good that you feel sad. And I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but if you know what I'm talking about, then you know that I'm not crazy. But if you've never read her books, you probably think I'm crazy. But anyways, so this is the only Christmas book that I'm going to mention tonight. But I do plan in the future not only to do a blog post on good Christmas books, because there are a lot of good Christmas books out there that I think you should read, but I'll also do a video. But I just wanted to show it to you in paperback form. It's a wonderful book, y'all, and you really should get it. But anyways, so if you watched my video a couple of weeks ago, you saw that like tall stack of love-inspired suspense books that I checked out from my library, and I told you it'd probably take me a while. I have been working on them during my Thanksgiving break, because like I've said before, the great thing about love-inspired books is that they're a little bit shorter than other novels, and so for me, they don't take up as much time reading, but I still get that satisfaction of a good story and a little bit of downtime. When I read a couple of them on my Kindle, it usually takes me about 4 hours, based on, you know, that little tab at the bottom you can read that tells you your reading speed. It'll take me around 4 hours. But a longer novel, like an Irene Hannon novel, for example, takes me about 6 hours. If I'm reading Tamara Alexander or Julie Clausen, it's going to take a lot longer than 6 hours. So that's one of the reasons I like love-inspired books. I get a good story in a shorter amount of time. So let me share with you some of the ones that I have finished. First off is Deadly Evidence by Elizabeth Goddard. This one is about an FBI agent who's looking into the murder of her sister, and she ends up reuniting with her ex-boyfriend, who is a homicide detective who is looking into the murder. But the heroine, Tori, ends up getting targeted, and someone's trying to kill her, and so they're trying to hurry up and solve this murder, not only to figure out what happened to her sister, but also to keep her safe. Let me tell you what, Elizabeth Goddard knows how to keep your attention. She knows how to add plenty of suspense. She also knows how to weave in those faith elements, which I like, that kind of get you thinking. And one of the things that I really liked is Tori begins to wonder if what she thought was important was actually important at all. And I don't want to go into more detail than that, because I don't want to potentially spoil something for you. But it definitely gave me some food for thought. It gave me something to chew on. And I liked that a lot. This is one of her better love-inspired books, I think. I mentioned one time that I feel like her longer books are better than these shorter ones. And I feel like it's because in the longer books, she has more room to work with. Whereas this has a specific word count. These tend to be 55,000 words. Whereas her longer books probably are more like 90,000. And as a writer, I can just go ahead and tell you that does give you more room to work with character development and with subplots and everything else. But this is actually one of her better ones. And it's decently recent. She wrote it in September of 2019 is when it came out, according to the spine. You know, the little date up here. But I think if you have never read Elizabeth Goddard before, this is a fantastic place to start. And I highly recommend it. It's called Deadly Evidence. And it probably is still available on Amazon in Kindle form. You might be able to find it in a used bookstore. Or you might get lucky like I did and find it in your local library. Now the next one, Mission Undercover by, I think you pronounce her name Virginia Vaughan. I think that's how you say her last name. Could be wrong on that. She's part of the Suspense Squad. Just Google the Suspense Squad and you'll find their website. They're a group of suspense writers. Some of them are published and some of them are pre-published, like my friend Hope Welburn, who was a Genesis winner this year. And they interview suspense writers and they talk about suspense. And they put the little videos up on their website for you to watch at any time. They've even interviewed Diane Mills, which is really cool. But this is the first book of hers that I have read. And I will be reading her books again. Okay? She does not skimp on the suspense. But also, she just has this really great writing. Like, she grabbed me in the first page and never let me go. Like, I had to just keep sitting there and reading. And I had work to do. But, I would stop reading and I'd be like, I gotta do some work. And I actually worked faster because I knew once I got done I could go back to reading her book. Just phenomenal writing. And I love the spiritual element in here. There's some discussion about trusting God's judgment over your own judgment, about when things go wrong in your life. And one of the characters, I'm not going to give away who, but one of the characters is a little mad at God for something that happened to them, and that's addressed. And I always appreciate a really good spiritual arc and some faith elements that get you thinking about your own relationship with God. And Virginia managed to do that while also giving a very satisfying romance. One thing I will say is the romance in this was very quick. Very quick. Like, I think it was like a few days. Which, if you've read my reviews on my blog, you know I kind of have an issue with. One thing I will say, though, is that the characters admitted that it was very quick. And they admitted that, you know, things were a little bit different under intense circumstances. And so there was some discussion about that. And I appreciated the fact that it was addressed. Because whenever they just glaze over it like it's normal, it just, I don't know, it just kind of bothers me. I think relationships should be tested and tried. Which, to be fair, their relationship was kind of tested and tried. Just in a very short period of time. You know, it's not in every relationship that someone wants to kill you both. So, there's that. But anyways, I highly recommend it. It's called Mission Undercover. It is part of a series. I was able to read this and follow it and understand it. No problem. But it did make me want to read some of the other books. Apparently, the hero Blake in this one was a secondary character in another book. So, there was a little teensy tiny spoiler because something that happened in that book is addressed in this book. But I don't think it's going to keep me from enjoying the book, to be honest with you. But anyway, so, I highly recommend this one. This one, also by Elizabeth Goddard, and also part of a series, and it's called Texas Christmas Defender. And this is a series that Love Inspired Suspense did, and they were written by different authors, as opposed to, like, Virginia Vaughn's series, which is just her. And then this book, I found out, was the first in a series that Elizabeth Goddard did. and I haven't read the other ones. It's the Mount Shasta Secret series. But this series that Elizabeth Goddard is in, it's called Texas Ranger Holidays, and they were written by different authors. And like the series title suggests, they take place on holidays. I was a little thrown off because this has Christmas in the title, and it starts off on Christmas Day, but it actually finishes like closer to New Year's, so that did kind of confuse me a little bit. But this story was very interesting because it is about a girl named Adriana, and her brother runs a cartel, and she managed to escape. But the authorities think that she's involved with the cartel. And there's a Texas Ranger who she actually saved his life, I think like 2 years before this novel, from her brother. And he's part of this task force that's supposed to bring down the cartel. And he doesn't fully believe that she's involved, but he still goes to investigate. And anyways, her brother is trying to kill her for her, betrayal. And the ranger has to protect her. And this was really good. And it's also part of a series. This is the last book, which I was very disappointed when I went to go look at the series and see the other books. I found out there were only 3. And they mentioned more than 3 rangers, so I thought there were going to be some more books about the rangers. But, that being said, the other books looked really good. I haven't read those authors yet, though. But that's a good thing about Love Inspired Suspense, because I give them like 4 hours of my time, and then I decide whether or not I want to read them again. But anyway, so this was really good. Not as good as this book by Elizabeth Goddard, but still good. And, a nice little thing to read around the holidays. This was published back in 2017. So yeah, it's probably still on Amazon Kindle, and you might get lucky to find it in a used bookstore, but I highly recommend it. Alright, this one is also Elizabeth Goddard, and it's called Undercover Protector. And when I mentioned this a couple weeks ago that I had checked it out from the library, I mentioned that it takes place on a tiger sanctuary, and I wondered if Joe Exotic fans would like it. I've never seen the Tiger King, so I don't know. But I will say this was interesting. It made me kind of appreciate tiger sanctuaries when they're done right. But I can also see where they can go wrong, because the hero in this novel, his name is Grayson. He is actually investigating wildlife trafficking, and he suspects the sanctuary of being part of it. And the sanctuary owner is named Gemma Rollins, and she is trying to do her best and doesn't know that her sanctuary is being investigated. So this grips you with danger from page 1. It kept going. I liked the way Elizabeth developed Grayson and Gemma, because you could definitely tell that they were drawn to one another, but they had reasonable cautions. And I can appreciate that, because Grayson just shows up out of nowhere right when Gemma is almost killed, and she doesn't know him from Adam's house cat. See what it did there. So she's definitely cautious about him. I figured out who the villain was, and I think Elizabeth Goddard did that on purpose, because it added some suspense where you were wondering what was going to happen. And let me tell you, this ended with a bang. It was good. This one kept me reading, and I wasn't entirely sure about it when I opened it up. And really, the only reason I checked it out was because it was by Elizabeth Goddard, and I love her. But it was really good, and I think that if you love suspense, you're gonna like this one. If you like the Tiger King, maybe you will also love this one. I don't know. Anyways, now I also mentioned my love of Irene Hannon, and that I had gotten hold of some of her Hope Harbor novels. If you have not read Hope Harbor by Irene Hannon yet, I highly recommend you go read it. It is on Kindle Unlimited, so if you have Kindle Unlimited, that's a perfect opportunity to go check her out. It is about a widower named Michael and a widow named Tracy. And there was a lot of discussion about guilt and grief, which I really loved. And there was this great subplot with this older woman named Anne, who was estranged from her son. And that was just a really good subplot. A lot of great spiritual elements. I will say Irene Hannon treats them. She treats them with the importance that they deserve, but she treats them light enough that it doesn't feel preachy, if that makes sense. But this book, Sea Rose Lane, is the next one in the series. Now, Tracy mentions the heroine of this novel in Hope Harbor. Her name is B.J. Novak, and she is an architect. And she actually comes to Hope Harbor after a failed romance that left her a little jaded, understandably. And then the hero is attorney Eric Nash. And, B.J. Stevens. Not B.J. Novak. I don't know where that came from. Anyways, the heroine is B.J. Stevens. She's an architect. And Eric Nash is an attorney who comes back to Hope Harbor after he's laid off. So there's definitely some discussion about plans deferred and how things don't go exactly the way that you anticipated. And I've mentioned this before, but one of the things I love about Irene Hannon's books is that the characters in the romances aren't very wishy-washy. I get very annoyed where on one page they're totally into each other, and then the next page they're beginning to doubt each other. That gets annoying. With Irene Hannon novels, there's always that I don't know if I should element, and there's usually a really good reason. For this one, Eric Nash is planning on leaving Hope Harbor. But he wants an attorney job in a big city, whereas BJ wants to stay in Hope Harbor. That's a pretty big obstacle. And it's very reasonable when they're a little like, I don't know, I like you, but I don't know. You understand where they're coming from because they're trying to come from this as like mature adults and understand the consequences and the implications of their decisions, which I really liked. But Irene Hannon really does a great job of building the romance, making you root for them, making you root for them to be together, like that they should. And at the end they're going to get together, but like the question of how is pretty big and just like hangs over your head. And she has these really great side characters, like Charlie, who runs the fish taco truck. I love Charlie. He's very insightful and intuitive, and he's kind of like the mentor in her series. And he always gives this really great advice that really makes you think. But anyways, this was really good. I finished this very late one night. And it took all that I had not to go ahead and read the next one. Especially since the next book features one of BJ's employees. Not an employee, he's named Adam Stone. He is the hero of Sandpiper Cove. And he is an ex-con. And the heroine of this novel, Lexi, is the police chief. So there's obviously going to be a little conflict there. But one of the things I really liked about this book is the discussion about overcoming your past and how you can let your past define you in a good way, whereas like you overcome it and you become better because of it, or in a bad way where you allow it to haunt you and guide all of your decisions. And I really appreciated that storyline. I think that's something that we all should think of as Christians, because we talk about Christ cleansing us from our sins, but we don't always act like it. So I really appreciated the fact that Irene Hannon mentioned that in this novel. The conflict in this book, a lot of it was kind of the what would other people think about, the police chief dating an ex-con. Like, how's that going to look, And there's also some, like, professional decisions because Adam Stone gets accused of something. And, there's some considerations with that. But all in all, this was an exceptional book. I loved the characters. I loved watching them grow and come together. And I don't remember what the subplot in this one was. The subplot in this one was an older woman named Eleanor. And she ends up helping a Cuban immigrant, which was really good because the subplot there was about how we say we want to help people, but sometimes we act like we're too good for them and we only want to help them from a distance. Now the subplot in this one, now I remember. The subplot in this one was about a teenager that Adam is helping, and the teenager has gotten in with the wrong crowd, and Lexi asked Adam to mentor him and to kind of share with him how, the decisions you make as a child can impact you in the future. And Adam is trying to get him on the right track. And it was so good. I loved watching them together. It was great. Okay, and then this one is the last one that I got to read, called Pelican Point. And it is about the newspaper editor, Marcy Weber, who is mentioned in the last book. That's what Irene does that's great. She'll mention the characters in one book that are going to be featured in the next book. So then you're already kind of like acquainted with them by the time you read their story. But it's about Marcy Weber and then an army doctor named Ben Garrison. And they come to blows over a lighthouse. And I love that. But they both have some things that happened in their past that kind of, I would venture to say it traumatized them a little bit. And they have some reasonable concerns based on that. But, all in all, this was also exceptional. And I'm running out of time. And I want to get to some other books. But, highly recommend Irene Hannon's Hope Harbor series. They are fantastic. And I'm really excited to read the next one. So, the one that comes after Pelican Point is called Driftwood Bay. And I have read that one. That was actually the first one that I read. And it was really good. I'll have to talk about that one another time. But anyways, let me share with you real quick what's on my TBR, what I have left. I have 3 romantic suspense. I've been reading too much romantic suspense. But I have 3 love-inspired suspense books left. There's Running Target by Elizabeth Goddard. And it is about... Oh, man. Bree Carrington's boat is sunk by men carrying illegal weapons. And then she's rescued by a DEA agent, Quinn Strand, her ex-boyfriend. Ooh. That's going to be problematic. And then this one, which I will probably read next because it has the word holiday in the title. Undercover Holiday Fiance by Maggie K. Black. I have read some of her stuff before, so I'm really intrigued by this one. Let's see here. What is it about? Oh. A detective poses as a fiance of another detective. Ooh. And they were together once before. But now they're undercover together again. Ooh, that sounds good. Anyways. And then this one called Wilderness Reunion by Elizabeth Goddard. And it is in the same series as the one about the tigers. But it's about Alice Wilde, who is Grayson's sister. She ends up running into her ex-boyfriend, who is a photojournalist, after she stumbles on a drug operation. So that will be really interesting. I'm going to have to read that one. This one is called Deadly Pursuit by Irene Hannon. This is actually the second in the series. I read the first one and the third one. I read them out of order because that's just how I got my hands on them. And it's about 3 siblings. The first one was about Jake Taylor, or was it Jack Taylor? I think it was Jake Taylor. Jake Taylor, and then the last one that I read was about Cole Taylor, and this one in the middle is about Allison, the sister, and she's a social worker. I'm really excited to read this one. I think, if I remember correctly from the blurb, she's being stalked, and her brother's partner steps in to help her. So that's going to be really interesting. What I'm reading right now is In Harm's Way by Irene Hannon. It is the last of her Heroes of Quantico series, and from what I understand, that was her first traditionally published romantic suspense series. And I say that because she's written for love-inspired suspense. And I don't know if she did that before she came out with these books. But this is the last book in that series. I read the other 2. They were really good. I stayed up all night I stayed up all night reading one of them. It was just exceptional. But this one is interesting. I'm not super far into it. But it's about a woman named Rachel who finds a Raggedy Ann doll. And when she touches it, she gets really scared. Like, has a panic attack. But as soon as she lets it go, she doesn't have a panic attack anymore. And all she knows is that she thinks it has, like, a connection to her crime. And she ends up going to the FBI and meets Nick Bradley, who's an FBI agent. And at first, he kind of, like, dismisses it. According to the blurb, though, he's going to stumble across a link from a child abduction that's connected to the doll. So I think I see where it's going. but I don't know yet, and I don't want to tell you, just in case, one, it's a spoiler alert, and two, I might be wrong. I think I have an idea where it's going, though. So far, it's good. Her books are always really good. I mean, she manages to kind of grab your attention, and even though sometimes the characters might just be like having a meal together and talking about other stuff, you're still interested, you're still invested, you still want to know what's going to happen next. Especially when you have like these subplot characters that are somehow connected to it and you want to know how. But anyways, so this is what I'm reading next. I'm hoping to finish this soon. So I will share with you next week how that goes. So I gotta go. I gotta run and go to my Christmas party online. But I hope y'all have a great week, and I will see y'all again next Tuesday.